and welcome to the beautiful city of Melbourne, Australia, home of trams, some amazing food, as well as some incredible coffee, a great arts and culture scene, and some sports events we don't know much about, as well as some incredible board game related activities that we want to share with you, as well as our favourite spots around the city. So, this city has been voted the most livable city by a number of renowned publications, and you know what? We tend to agree. So, 100%. Let's go. A fun fact about the Melbourne CBD is that when you're travelling around the city centre, the iconic tram network is free to use. This can help save your legs, and it's fairly easy to navigate as Melbourne is one large grid of streets. Just make sure that you see the free tram zone sign before boarding at a stop.
So now let's dive into a few friendly local board game stores, because what better excuse to spend than being on holiday, right? So let's take a look at just a few stores to visit.
If you live in Melbourne, you probably know of Gamology, one of Australia's largest online board game retailers. Well, in Melbourne, we're lucky to have two in-person stores, the newest and biggest of which is in Brunswick, which is a little bit out of the city. It's just about to open, and let's go check it out. Let's go.
When we visited, Gamology was in the process of moving some things around, but you can see they have quite a broad selection. There's also a small space for some gaming, with a library of games to play. An interesting selection for us, but because we live so far away, we're more likely to check them out online than in store.
But if you're looking for something more central, then you can't go past Mind Games in the CBD. It has a huge collection, and it's right in the centre of town on Swanston Street. You can't miss it. We love to drop in here to have a look at the new collection every time we're in town. So let's go take a look.
On the first floor of Mind Games, you'll find a huge selection of games, including many new releases. We love to just slowly wander past this wall and look at all of the new arrivals. At the back of the store, there's usually a special shelf, but usually we find ourselves picking up small box games, as there's quite a good selection. While they might not be the cheapest out there, we like to support them to ensure we always have somewhere to shop in the CBD.
If you're into painting miniatures and other tabletop games, check out the upstairs where you'll find all of the paints and RPG related goodies.
Here we are outside Mind Games in Malvern. It's again a little bit out of the city, but this is probably one of our favorite stores because it's got an incredible variety, even though it's technically quite a small little shop. Let's check it out.
So as you can see, it's a tiny, tiny space, but on these shelves you'll find a really eclectic mix of brand new games and old games that have probably been living on these shelves for a long time. It's jam-packed with things to look at, and the staff are really friendly and willing to help you find a game or to recommend one. And here we are at our last stop on the list. It's Tabletop Games in Burwood. Now, this one is a little bit far out of the city, but it's the place where you're most likely to find us gaming. We meet here with friends because they have a huge space for tabletop gaming, a great library, and also a pretty well-stocked shop to pick up something as we leave. Let's go have a look.
Wrapping around the full store are shelves that are conveniently arranged in alphabetical order. We love wandering around and discovering games, and there's also a great mix of titles. But mostly, we love that the store has created a community here. Michael, the owner, has an impressive collection of games that make up the library, and every Saturday and Sunday, they have open gaming tables where you can come and play. We love to meet friends here, and very rarely walk out empty-handed because they often have great sales in-store and online.
Now, outside of stores, the gaming scene in Melbourne has been growing with more and more game days and conventions. There are many pockets of local game days, but let us tell you about some of the events and game days that we usually attend. First is PAX Australia, which happens in October at the Melbourne Convention Centre. PAX continues to be a predominantly video gaming convention, but the tabletop section, which used to be called the analog section, has been getting bigger and bigger every year. There's a library where you can borrow games to play, and in 2022, the Boardgame BBQ podcast where they're teaching games from their own collection across a number of tables. In fact, last year, the tabletop gaming section would stay open for gaming until close to midnight, which meant all of the video gamers would head to the gaming tables after the video game section closed. You can also see panels and some board game distributors and publishers showcasing their new games at PAX Australia.
And we mentioned the Boardgame BBQ, and if you watch the channel, you know we often go to their game days in Melbourne, which happen roughly once a quarter. These days are held in Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne, and they are such an inclusive, welcoming environment. The Boardgame BBQ team generously teach games all day, and we love to attend to try new games and teach some from our own collection as well. Keep an eye on their socials for details of upcoming game days.
Another fantastic YouTube channel, Meeple University, also call Melbourne home. Stella and Tarrant have created a wonderful board gaming meetup that takes place every 2 weeks on a Wednesday night right in the heart of the CBD. It's currently held at the back of the Melbourne Line pub on the top floor of Melbourne Central. They have a small library of games to borrow, or of course you're welcome to bring your own. It also happens to be right next to an arcade, so I'm always popping in there for a quick claw machine coin pusher game before we go in for our board gaming sesh. And speaking of arcades, there are many popping up all around Melbourne CBD, especially look out for the bright pink Million Life centres where there are plenty of claw machines that pay out terribly, but they're still fun anyway.
And now it's Amy's favorite part of the video, because what happens when you get hungry and you want to grab a quick bite between exploring and gaming sessions? Well, Melbourne has you covered and has one of the most incredible and diverse food scenes in the world. There is always something food related happening in and around the city.
And you know what? The first thing guidebooks might tell you is that the iconic Chinatown in the heart of the city is where the best food is at. And it does have good food, but the reality is that Melbourne, and while Australia more generally, has such a high Asian population that authentic, affordable, and delicious Southeast Asian food can be found on every street. Like right here on Swanston Street, where 3 of my favorite eateries are all right next to each other. So my pick is take the one with the shortest line and you're guaranteed a great meal. The first of the 3 is what I've always referred to as the best $12 you can spend in Melbourne, and while the price is $13 now, there's no doubt in my mind that the hand-pulled bowl of noodles from Biang Biang is worth every penny. Don't stray too far from number 1 on the menu. It's simply a bowl of wide, flat, hand-pulled noodles topped with chili oil, bean sprouts, and a healthy dose of garlic. Order it at the heat level you want and enjoy the fantastic chewy texture of this regional Chinese specialty dish.
And if that wasn't enough, 2 doors down, the beef noodle soup house Bowltiful is also serving hot bowls of hand-pulled noodles. Here you can choose your style of noodle and then a soup or dry preparation. There's plenty of chili oil on the table to adjust your heat level. Our pick of the menu is the beef brisket dry noodle dish with thick noodles. The dish smells incredible, and as soon as the bowl hits the table, our mouths start watering.
But the most interactive and the best choice for a cold Melbourne day is right between these 2 noodle places, Dragon Hot Pot. While there are so many amazing hot pot restaurants in Melbourne, one on every corner, Dragon Hot Pot offers a fast and personalised experience that is so addictively flavoursome that it's become hugely popular. To get started, take a bowl and a pair of tongs and then help yourself to a wide array of vegetables, meats, seafoods, fish balls, tofu, noodles and more. Once you're done, take your selection to the counter, choose a soup base and a spice level, and they will cook it up for you and bring it back to the table. There's even a vegan base which is delicious. Hot tip though, Maggie always overdoes it here by getting carried away with the ingredients and never finishes her bowl. Be careful as you pay by the weight. Another tip is if the line for any of these 3 restaurants is too long and you have your heart set on going, all 3 options have outposts in other parts of the city, so try a different location.
And if you find yourself checking out the famous Chapel Street restaurants or vintage shopping scene, look out for this tiny Japanese sashimi restaurant, Tsukiji, in Prahran. Why is it worth the trip? Well, it's this super casual, tiny restaurant where they bring in the freshest fish every day. When you come in, you take a basket and you choose all the fish that you want, pay for it, and take a seat. They'll cut everything up into the freshest sashimi platter that Melbourne has to offer. It's a really special treat in a relaxed environment. Just don't bother too much with the rest of their menu because the sashimi, it's where it's at. But back in the CBD, if you're wondering the famous street art of Hosier Lane, the restaurant Movida next door is deserving of its popularity. Stop in for a glass of wine and some Spanish tapas.
Now that we're back in the heart of the city, if you're looking for a sweet treat, it would be remiss of us not to mention the sheer number of bubble tea shops in the Melbourne CBD. There's multiple on every street. Our favourite of them all, Xing Fu Tang, where they steep the tapioca pearls in brown sugar in a heated wok before they are scooped up into your cup. But here we actually rarely opt for a bubble tea and instead get the Bubble Sundae, a soft serve of tangy frozen yogurt sitting on top of hot pearls in brown sugar syrup. Delicious. And the other thing Melbourne is famous for, well, it's serious about its coffee. So much so that at one stage, Starbucks had to close all of its stores here. There are too many great options, so we'll just mention one of my favourite sustainable and female-operated brands, Market Lane Coffee, which is in multiple locations, as well as a nostalgic recommendation called Brother Baba Budan in the centre of the city. This is where Maggie and I went on our first date and had photos taken on our wedding day. Don't forget to look up at the unusual ceiling.
There's so much more we could share with you about Melbourne. There's the National Gallery of Victoria with world-class exhibitions, a vibrant street art culture, and the free ongoing exhibition at ACME, the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, called The Story of the Moving Image, which shows how film and video gaming has evolved over time.
Pop down to the river at night and in front of the Crown Casino you can see the Pigeon Fire Hazard, a fire show that runs on the hour. And if you find yourself there, well, you should also know there's the Kingpin Crown Complex, one of the larger arcades in Melbourne.
We could go on forever, and so maybe one day we'll make more videos where we can talk about some of the outdoor activities or also the incredible beaches that Australia is so famous for.
Now, we hope you've enjoyed seeing a little bit of our world here in Melbourne, Australia. We've certainly enjoyed sharing it with you.
Yes, and if you've ever been to Melbourne or if you live in Melbourne, make sure that you share your tips and your favorite things to do in the comments below.
And if you like the video, please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll be back with more board game content and destinations soon. But bye for now.
Bye.